Hello and welcome to the editorial analysis of the Hindu. Today we shall be discussing the editorial of the 18th of July, but before we begin, please take a look. We are conducting a free workshop on the 21st of July, that is this coming Sunday. We have invited one of our old students, Dr. Shrikant, who had scored an All India rank of 680 in this particular workshop. There will be several insights that will be shared. You can ask your questions, any doubts vis-a-vis this particular exam. All those of you who can reach us on this particular date, please reach us at our Bangalore Center. These are our details. For those of you who cannot reach us, we will try and provide footage of this workshop on our YouTube channel, so please subscribe to us. Now coming to the analysis of today, the first article is at the UNSC, a 3-point agenda. The context here is with regards to India getting a non-permanent seat at the UNSC. This is for a tenure of 2 years and this is for the years 2021 to the year 2022. This context itself is what is very relevant. The topic will become important for this year's means, so kindly focus on it. Coming to the issues, the first issue that has been discussed in the editorial is with regards to India's representation. Now here you need to know that this particular tenure that has been given to India is what has come after a time gap of 10 years. Previously, this was what India got in the year 2011 to the year 2012. So this is one thing that it is reflecting that how rare is this kind of a membership that India has gotten. Even when India had gotten it in the year 2011-12, it was what was after a gap of 20 years. In the total years since the formation of UN, India has only been a non-permanent seat holder of the UNSC for 14 years collectively. So this is what is showing that this is what is a rare opportunity which definitely India must leverage for its own advantage. That is the first analysis. Another analysis is with regards to the troubled regions that are surrounding India. Because this is a rare opportunity, India has a scope or an opportunity to contribute to the well-being of these troubled regions. So what are these troubled regions? The first of these troubled regions is West Asia. We all know West Asia is facing several challenges. There is insurgency in this particular region. There is terrorism. Islamic State has just been defeated. Iraq is at unrest, Syria is at unrest, Iran is facing challenges vis-a-vis the US, So this is one area which is highly disturbed as of now. So West Asia is one challenging area. Another challenging area is the South Asia itself, where India's immediate neighborhood for that matter. Afghanistan is what is not stable, so that is one challenge. India-Pakistan rivalry is what is there in this region. There are unresolved border issues that are there in South Asia. There are territorial disputes that are taking place. So this is another troubled region that is where India could contribute. Another region is East Asia. Now in East Asia, primarily it's the Korean Peninsula, primarily in the context of North Korea. So this area again is not stable, so that is what has been analyzed. These are the troubled regions where India can contribute. Another analysis is with regards to some newer challenges. Now here what you need to understand that compared to India being a member in the year 2011-12, a lot is what has changed. Some newer challenges are what have emerged, and these challenges are primarily with regards to a new form of nationalism which is emerging. What we generally saw in the year 2011-12 was that this was a time of globalization. But now the time that has changed is that globalization is what is being considered gone in today's era, and a sort of nationalism, which is also a hyper-nationalism, is what is emerging. This is what can be seen in movements like Brexit, also the stand that is being taken by countries like US, the undermining of international institutions like the WTO, or for that matter UN itself. So these are some issues which have been highlighted in this editorial, that these are some newer challenges which India is facing. There are problems of populism, polarization that is rising in the world, and it is to these particular challenges that India has to face and rise to. So that is what has been discussed. Another analysis is with regards to some positives of this particular scenario. Now the positive aspect of the United Nations as of now is that the UN itself was formed with the idea that it should ensure international peace. And that is what UN has successfully ensured. There has largely been a record of international peace and security, and that is one positive aspect of the UN over these years. So that is a positive scenario. Another important analysis is with regards to the permanent seat. We all know that India is seeking reforms in the United Nations Security Council. India wants a permanent seat in the UNSC. But the editorial is advocating that this permanent seat is what is elusive for India. This is primarily because P5 have to vote for this, and China is what is never going to allow India becoming a permanent member, at least never soon. So in that particular context, the editorial is advocating that India shouldn't struggle hard for seeking this elusive permanent seat. Rather, the focus of our country should primarily be on strengthening its position in the UNSC, and this is what India can do through several means. This is first and foremost, this is what India can achieve by contributing financially to the United Nations. The financial contribution of India is at present very, very low. Obviously, the P5 countries are contributing highly to the United Nations. Also, countries like Japan and Germany are contributing more than India, so India must try and increase its financial contribution. The second contribution should be towards the peacekeeping forces. Here, you should know that India has the highest contribution to the peacekeeping forces. That is true. But when it comes to peacekeeping missions, the contribution or participation by India is what is minuscule. So that is one area where India needs to increase its participation in the context of the United Nations Security Council. So that is what has been talked about. Another important analysis that has been made in the editorial is with regards to global leadership. Now, the editorial is advocating that India has large scope for global leadership. With this opportunity being given to India, India can take a leadership role on critical issues, for example, on security issues. Also on refugee issue, India can take a leadership role. Refugee problem is a global problem as of now. Several refugees from Syria have moved to Europe, and that is one challenge that the world is facing. So this is one issue where India could take a leadership stand. Also in the context of poverty, climate change, India could rather act as a consensus builder is what has been advocated as its position in the as a non-permanent seat holder in the UNSC. India can act as a consensus builder, so that is what has been advocated here. Another important analysis is with regards to the humanitarian interventions, and this is basically a key word. UNSC, in the name of humanitarian intervention, is often known to interfere in the internal politics and internal affairs of different countries selectively. So the editorial is advocating that here is where the UNSC has to show some restraint. It has to make these interventions rationally and not derived by the agenda of few countries, and that is where India has a role to play to ensure that a rule-based order is what is established in the UNSC itself, because the United Nations Security Council and its credibility itself is what is at stake and threatened as of now. So that is what has been advocated. Another analysis is with regards to the United Nations Security Council sanctions. Here you should know that these sanctions are what are imposed by the Security Council in a very, very irrational manner. Often these sanctions are what are guided by the interest of few countries only, and only few countries are facing the wrath of the UNSC, despite the fact that several others are blatantly disregarding the United Nations Security Council. We all know Israel is one such country which is being protected by US, and Iran on the contrary is facing several sanctions. So these are some analyses which we have discussed in the past. So India can contribute to ensure that a rule-based order is there, and such kind of selective sanctions are what are avoided. So that is what has been analyzed. Another analysis is with regards to India's interest in having an ideology of polycentrism, and this is in India's interest primarily because of the rising of two poles, that is US and China. More so in the case of China, to ensure that there is no hegemony of a particular power coming or rising. So it is in the interest that a multilateral platform like the UNSC is what is ensured, and the ideology of polycentrism is what is advocated. So that is what has been advocated here. Another analysis is with regards to India's neighborhood itself. Here the editorial is advocating that for India to take up any global leadership role, it is important that first and foremost it sets things right in its own neighborhood. For that matter, in the case of primarily Pakistan, and the tensions that are there between India and Pakistan are one of the major concerns globally. So how can India advocate peace for other countries when it itself is at loggerheads with its own neighbor? So in that particular context, India must set affairs right even in its own neighborhood. So that is the entire analysis of this particular article. Indeed relevant, important. I am expecting this can be a question whenever a conventional topic is what has mixed with current affairs. That is the best cocktail for UPSC, the most favorite. So you can definitely expect a question. Indeed, this is important. Coming to the next article, takeaways from the Kulbhushan Jadhav case ruling. Now the context here is with regards to the International Criminal Court or the International Court of Justice, which has given a ruling on the Kulbhushan Jadhav case. Now you should know that in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case, he was given a death penalty by a military court in Pakistan. This death sentence is what has been done away with by the ICJ. So in that particular context, this matter is again what is in news. It is relevant. The Kulbhushan Jadhav case is always very, very important in the context of India-Pakistan relations, which is one of the most important topics. So in that particular context, the article is important. Coming to the issues, first and foremost, you should know briefly about this particular case. We have discussed it several times. Now, Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav, he was an officer of the Indian Navy, and he was arrested by Pakistan in Iran. After taking retirement from service, he was settled in Iran, and he was arrested by Pakistan officers there, primarily on charges of espionage, and he was convicted by a military court in Pakistan. So this is what is the entire controversy. Now, about the ICJ, what you should know is that in this particular case, the ICJ noted that Pakistan government had violated numerous international treaties, and it had extracted irregular confessions under coercion from Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav. This is what has been noted by the ICJ, and this is what India has been saying for long, and as a result of which India's demand for a consular access to Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav is what has been upheld by the ICJ. So this is a major moral victory for India. So that is what is important. Also, in the context of strategy, what you should know that what was the strategy that India has followed. The strategy has primarily been to exploit the increasing international acceptance that Pakistan is a rogue state. In Pakistan's support to terrorism is something that India's top leadership, including India's Prime Minister, has been highlighting on several international fora. So India had done just that. That is one part of India's strategy. Another thing was that India had claimed that Pakistan had scant regard for Article 36 of the Vienna Convention. This is what is important. You should know that as per Article 36 of the Vienna Convention on consular relations, some norms are what have to be followed in case an officer is what is arrested. Clearly, these were not followed by Pakistan, and that is the issue. Another important analysis is with regards to the military court. Now, this decision, as I told you, of death penalty was what was taken by a military court. About these military courts, what you should know is that they have always been very, very controversial. They emerged after the World War II, back in the year 1945 itself. That is when this idea came up. Now, this was an era where there was a need for fast tracking of trials with scant respect for all the evidence. So in that particular context, these kind of military courts and their judgments cannot be respected, is what has been analyzed. Another important analysis is with regards to Balochistan. This is primarily important because Pakistan is facing several challenges with Iran in the context of the Balochistan province, and it is at this particular province, in this particular context, that Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav has been arrested. He was believed, it was believed by the Pakistan government that he was doing some illegal activities in the context of Balochistan. So what is important here is that India has always been claiming that Pakistan is using proxy groups for unrest in Balochistan. So that is one issue that becomes important. If you have to discuss about Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav case, then you must talk about Balochistan as well. So that is one thing that is important. Another important analysis, which is a key word, is with regards to the intent and resilience that India has shown. India has shown both intent to free Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav as well as resilience in this particular case. The two achievements here was that Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav was allowed to meet his mother and wife, which was a victory for India. Also, now stopping the execution is what is a major victory. This is a moral victory, even if he will not be released. As of now, the editorial is discussing that expecting him to be released by Pakistan is only wishful thinking. Though that might not happen, but definitely as a moral victory, this is something that is an achievement for India. That is the entire analysis. I have told you this is an important case. Wherever you are discussing India-Pakistan relation, not discussing the Kulbhushan Jadhav case is what is going to be criminal. And rather discussing it will definitely fetch you more marks. So that is where the relevance is. Coming to the next article. Balance and tilt. Now the context here is with regards to Karnataka political crisis. I had discussed this article a few days back. There is an update. That time we had discussed that the matter has gone to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has given its decision. First and foremost, you should know that in the context of the anti-defection law, the Supreme Court had said that 15 MLAs who are against their own party and who wanted to resign from their party. The Speaker did not accept their resignation, and a whip was what was issued against these MLAs. Now the MLAs as per the Supreme Court, it has been noted that the MLAs are not bound by this particular whip. The Supreme Court has said that the MLAs cannot be forced to follow the diktats of their party. So that is what the first decision that the Supreme Court has taken. The second decision is with regards to the Speaker. That time we had discussed that the Speaker had not accepted their resignation. That there is a constitutional silence on the issue of resignation by the MLAs. In this particular case, the Speaker has no time limit as to which he has to accept their resignation, and the Speaker, instead of acting in a neutral manner, was acting in a very, very partisan manner. So that was the entire controversy in this particular context. So definitely Supreme Court has not interfered with the powers of the Speaker, but it has undermine the anti-defection law. So that is what is the newer development in this particular case. The power of the speaker is a question that is very, very important for 2-3 years rather. Neutrality of the speaker is again a question which you can expect, and if a question does come amongst a plethora of cases where the speakers have acted in a partisan manner and not in a neutral manner, this is again one such case which you must talk about. So that is where the relevance of this particular article is. And coming to the next article, yeah, these are the only articles for today. Before we end, please take a look at one of our programs. We are starting a mains test series from the 20th of July. These will include 12 tests for the main paper. Also 10 essay tests are what are going to be included. This will be available both offline as well as online. For those of you who will apply online, you can send us your scanned copies and we will provide you telephonic feedback. So that's about this particular program, and that's about our discussion today. I thank you all for watching the video.